In 1960, in Omaha, Nebraska, a deep friendship blossomed at the Henley Dooley Zoo between Harry, a compassionate zookeeper, and Oscar, an orphaned chimpanzee. Harry, having no family of his own, found a unique kinship with Oscar, who had lost both his parents at a young age. Harry was a hobbyist pianist, and particularly fond of Bach's Minuet in G. He spent his evening practicing, and Oscar was always there, captivated. That's when it struck Harry. Could he teach Oscar? He ordered a custom-made 66-note piano tailored to Oscar's larger hands and installed it in his own. They embarked on an ambitious project. Every day for 13 months, Harry committed an hour to teaching Oscar. The journey was slow and sometimes frustrating, but both were committed. Little by little, Oscar's fingers, initially clumsy on the keys, grew more coordinated and purposeful. After 13 long months, the impossible happened. Oscar mastered Minuet in G. The moment he played the piece flawlessly was nothing short of magical, a testament to his perseverance, friendship, and the universal language of music. But soon after, tragedy struck. Harry passed away from a sudden heart attack. Oscar was devastated. The zoo staff, moved by their exceptional relationship, converted a space within the zoo for Oscar, complete with his special piano. Oscar spent his remaining years in that room. The sound of Minuet in G continued to echo through the corridors of the zoo, a soulful tribute to his lost friend. Each note was a bittersweet reminder of the 13 months that forever changed two lives. During Harry's memorial, the emotional highlight was a recording of Oscar playing their song. As the music filled the air, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Their story became legendary, teaching everyone who heard it that love and friendship know no boundaries, that persistence can achieve the unimaginable, and that music is a language that speaks to all souls. Now, of course, this is all a lie. There's no weepy chimp hitting the same 10 notes like he's trying to summon his dead friend back to life. I told you this tale of Harry and Oscar because let's face it, most people learn coding like Oscar plays the piano. Look, I made a website. Great. Can you do anything else? No. You're the Oscar of coding. Congrats. You've mastered the art of being functionally useless. Harry, the hypothetical now dead zookeeper, knew music. He could have taught Oscar Freebird if he wanted to, but he's not a masochist. So why settle for being the chimp when you can be Harry? Except alive, obviously. Harry's dead. It's tragic, but also kind of funny. Let's be Harry in coding and not the loser Oscar, who, if given another sheet of music, would probably eat it. Now let's get real. Here's how I'd learn coding if I could turn back the clock. I divided my plan in 5 steps, just 5. Step 1, the why, because you need to know why you're torturing yourself with JavaScript. Step 2, tips for learning how to code. Spoiler alert, it's not staring at your screen until your eyes bleed out. Step 3, the first 4 levels of programming. Yup, like a video game, except no one's having fun. Step 4, best practices. This is where we get really boring but also essential, like dental hygiene. And step 5, the interview. You know, the thing that you have to survive to actually get paid for this madness. Oh, and stick around to the end because I've got a bonus for you. Life is chaotic, it's a mess. You step into coding thinking, hey, I can do this. And you end up with existential dread at 2 a.m. because you forgot a lettering function. I broke it down this way because these are the 5 key steps on the staircase of doom I wish someone had told me about. Harry had Minuet in G for Oscar. I've got these 5 steps for you. So whether you're college-bound, bootcamp enrolled, or just a lost soul googling how to make money without selling a kidney, I've got you covered. Strap in, it's going to be a wild ride. Alright, so step 1, know your why. Like seriously know why you're jumping into this hellish inferno of curly braces and semicolons. I wanted to build games, robots, and startups. What's your angle? Wanna be the next Steve Jobs, maybe build Skynet but without the whole end of the humanity thing? If you don't know, you can look at YouTubers and see their day-to-day life and see if that's for you. Now listen, if you're like me and interested in multiple things at a time, you gotta focus. Give it time to see if you really like an area or not before moving over to the next thing. You gotta choose a lane. You need to think, where are you gonna shine? Let's talk timelines. These timelines that I'm gonna share aren't gospel. Front end. 2 years, folks. That's your runway to be the next Leonardo of landing pages. Year 1 is your walks on, walks off phase, basics, and baby projects. Focus like a cat on a laser point, and who knows, you might just land an internship or junior your way into adulthood. Year 2, you're the sequel. Less Godfather 3 and more Terminator 2. You won't just be slinging code, you'll be the Bob Ross of UX, happy little buttons everywhere. 2 years, like front end, but this is the heavy metal to front end's pop music. You're the backbone, the unsung hero. Databases, you toss them around like a salad. CI/CD pipelines become your new BFFs. Networks fundamentals, that's your stage. You're the rockstar. Oh, you want to be the next Tony Stark? Cool. Get an engineering degree and talk to me in a decade. You're looking at 4 to 5 years just to be the awkward teen of robotics. And mastering it, decades, my friends. Mobile. Takes 2 years to get good and land a job, just like front and back end. With React Native and Flutter, you've got shortcuts. App Dev Academy can also be a great option. Data science. Some take 3 years, some take 5, some forget they even started. There's no fixed path, kind of like data itself. My friends who got in either started at a startup cannon fodder or had a Python background in college that made it easier for them to switch careers. Game dev. So you want to make the next Fortnite. Start with 4 to 5 years of no sleep and caffeine addiction. Game dev's a tough nut. Specializations are everywhere. You gotta be a coding wizard, especially in Unreal Engine C++ love language. Of course, you can also not try to work at AAA game studios, and that increases your odds of getting a job as well, so take my words with caution. Got different timelines? Throw them in the comments. My way and the highway. Just because 2 friends and a hobo got in front end in 2 years doesn't mean you will too. Tech stacks change, React is today golden child, but who knows, maybe Svelte will be the next prom queen. Picking up a tech stack is a little bit of picking up a spouse. You don't want to rush, but you don't want to be a player either. Commit. You're not building a Swiss army knife of skills at first. Think of the T model of expertise. Master one thing first, dabble later. Got your why and your path? Cool. Let's stumble down to the next rabbit hole. That brings us to tips to learning how to code. First tip is permission to screw up granted. First off, coding is about errors. Afraid you ruin something? You won't. Your local machine is more forgiving than a Series A investor hearing the phrase "we are pre-revenue." We learn from screwing up. The bigger the error, the more you learn. Worried about what this piece of code does? Comment it out like it's a problematic tweet. See what happens. If it blows up, just uncomment it and see if the error goes away. The point is, errors aren't the end. That brings us to the second tip. Skip the eternal loop of tutorial hell. Watching tutorials without coding is like watching cooking shows while eating ramen. You're consuming, not creating. You end up a Gordon Ramsay fan who can't even boil water. Coding isn't memorizing syntax to solve a problem you've seen 10 times before by lots of people sharing the screen. Coding is sitting down with a problem and thinking your way through a solution. Now, if you're able to find a solution that works for you in Stack Overflow or ChatGPT or even some random YouTube video, awesome. But the problem comes first, and so does your understanding of it. You can't search for a solution if you don't know what your problem is. And all those YouTube videos won't be better at teaching you the basics than sitting down with a coding problem and solving it your own way. And for the love of God, if you're gonna take a course, follow along. Let's make errors and fix them. Don't just watch. Shrink the beast, then slay it. Ever tried to eat a whole pizza in one bite? Of course not. Every monumental problem is just a cluster of smaller, bite-sized issues. And coding is no different. If you are banging your head against the wall, start by chipping away at the problem. Try to solve 10% of it, then 20%, like unlocking levels in the game. Don't know where to start? Try finding similar problems that you have solved in the past and see the difference between them. Keep digging. Check the book How to Solve It. It's the holy grail of problem solving. And the last tip on learning is RTGDD. Repeat after me. Read the goddamn docs. Every dev has once tried saving a few minutes of reading the documentation by spending days brute forcing their way into problems. I did it, my friends did it, and you'll do it too. Just read the goddamn docs. Alright, that brings us to the half of the video. It's the third step, first 4 levels of programming. Levels in programming are a bit like the stages of grief. Everyone goes through them, just not always in the same order. I recommend going through the first 2 in order, then the others you can just tackle anytime you want. Initially, a lot of what I say will sound like a bunch of BS, but as you level up, you have these, oh, I get it now moments. It doesn't matter if you learn it through Google, ChatGPT, Stack Overflow, or at the university. The levels hardly ever change, at least the initial ones. First level are the fundamentals. Okay, you wanna be a coding master, right? Like a Jedi, but less robed and more caffeinated. This is the level where you and your computer become best pals. Here's the 101. Bits and bytes, imagine these as Oscar's grunts and hoots. Simple, but they mean something. And yes, your computer gets it. Second, executable code. You write a shopping list, Oscar raids the pantry. That's your code turning into actions. Alright, here's some more jargon that you're gonna learn in this step. Control flow with conditionals. It's like choosing to either argue with your wife or just nod and say, yes, dear. Variables. It's like Oscar knowing the names of all the zookeepers he torments with that awful song. Data structures. How Oscar sorts his banana stash by ripeness, size, or whatever monkeys care about. Functions. Like Oscar has a dance for attracting a mate and another for finding food. Basic algorithm. You got your search algorithms, sorting algorithms, and basic problem solving. Any course that claims to teach you the basics of any particular language will go over these concepts. But let me give you some real talk. Start with C. It's like learning to cook with a wood-fired stove before jumping to instant pot. You learn more about what the computer is doing under the hood, and that will make you a better programmer. But if you're a millennial or below in a hurry, there's always Python and JavaScript. They are the microwave dinners of coding, much easier to learn. And after you get these basics, here's what you'll be able to do. Make CLI games, fun little text-based games, Arduino robots using C. You can bring small machines to life. CLI calculators and Python scripts and automate the boring stuff so you're free to screw up the fun stuff. Now, I will be talking about projects that I've seen from the GitHub repo called Build Your Own X throughout this video. I'll leave the link in the description. What's GitHub? We'll get there. Second level to computer programming. Welcome to the OOP Zoo. Alright, so object-oriented programming is like being a parent. Initializers are like the hospital room where your kid is born. It's where you give them their initial traits, their name, birth date, whether they are going to be a soccer prodigy or a tech genius. It's the starting point that defines how they're going to interact with the world from day one. Your kids then become objects with those attributes. You tell them what they can and can't do. Those are your methods. But of course, they get traits from you, like depression. Let's call that inheritance. You hope they keep their embarrassing moments private. That's encapsulation. And sometimes they surprise you by acting completely out of character. That's polymorphism. It's like finding out the kid you've been raising has different set of genes altogether. Same family, same rules, but oops. The methods he's executing came from the mailman. You thought you knew every version of this kid, but then bam, DNA test shows he's executing some other guy's code. Ouch. It's like a family sitcom, but the episodes are written in Java, Swift, Kotlin, or God forbid, Objective-C. These terms are confusing, right? Well, I got my OOP wisdom from Head First Java book. The authors are funny, and I almost forgot I was in a life crisis questioning my career choices. So what's the takeaway? Learn those terms via book, video, whatever. And don't forget to code along to avoid tutorial hell. Alright, listen up. You battle your way through OOP. Congrats. You're like a dog that finally learned not to pee on the rug. It's not a big deal, but we're all happier for it. So what now? Time to sit back and relax? Hell no. You gotta dive into those projects like a lonely guy in a tub of ice cream. You know what they say, the way of the programmer is in the code or some crap like that. At this point, kid, you should be able to do some cool tricks. Wanna make games? Hop into Unity, use C# and create the next Flappy Bird. Or, don't. Think you're the next mobile tycoon? Go on. Build your mobile apps on Android or Swift. APIs using Java? You're basically the guy who organizes the world's most boring parties that everybody needs to go. And listen, if you're into finance, build a website to track your expenses. Because nothing says fun like watching your money go down the drain in real time. And remember, all this stuff goes on GitHub. What's GitHub? In a minute. Third level, design patterns. Alright kids, get around. So you've been slinging code, churning out classes like Kardashian reality TV show churns out drama. But now it's time to talk about design patterns, the little magic spells of the programming world. Here's where you've seen lots of common problems with OOP, so instead of writing the same code over and over again, you look into common solutions to those problems. These are tried and true ways to tackle common issues that crop up. Why? Because programming languages are like human. They're flawed and irritating but necessary, and sometimes you need to take things in your own hands. You can learn these patterns as you go. Kinda like picking up bad habits from your friends, or you can get all scholarly and buy a book. There's a plethora of these suckers, and trust me, more are coming. They're like Marvel movies. You can't escape them. Now, you're ready for level 4 of this coding RPG. Buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Look, you've got your hands dirty with programming, but now you need to figure out how all these digital Lego blocks actually talk to each other. Yeah, it's time to deep dive into the wild world of networking. And here are some of the basics that you'll be learning. Server and client, picture this. You are at the restaurant. You're the client. The kitchen is the server. You yell, politely ask for a pizza and the kitchen makes it happen. OZ model and TCP IP. Imagine a 7-layer cake, right? Except instead of frosting and sponge, it's all geeky stuff that makes your internet not suck. Layers like, hey, are you even there? To here's a meme. It's the how-to manual for the internet. And unlike IKEA furniture, you don't want to skip any steps. SSH. It's like teleporting into another computer. Ever want to be somewhere else but too lazy to move? SSH is your digital magic carpet. Security practices. You wouldn't tell your deepest, darkest secrets to a stranger, right? Well, unless you're at the bar at 3 a.m. Same goes for sharing secrets in projects. This is also where you learn about VPNs, which are the trench coats and sunglasses of the internet. And there are, of course, other networking protocols. Think of these like dialects. You've got your formal English, your slang, and whatever Spanglish would correspond to. And what's next? Man, networking could have its own reality TV show. It's that complex. I can't cram it all into this video without feeling like I just ate 3 Thanksgiving dinners. You've come a long way. You've learned how to code, tackled OOP, messed around with design patterns, and even dipped your toes into networking. So what's next? It's time to step into the real world, where devs don't just code but also argue about tabs versus spaces. You need to get into the best practices, the do's and don'ts of coding. And guess what? It's finally time to get into Git and GitHub. That place where you'll be storing all the future masterpieces your mind comes up with. And let's be honest, a couple of embarrassing mistakes. But hey, it's all part of the journey. Alright, you've been lifting, coding-wise. You know your loops and arrays like Schwarzenegger knows bicep curls. But this ain't the gym class, it's the coding big leagues. It's time to dress that code in a tux and teach it some manners. Git. Listen, you need this like Batman needs his utility belt. No Git, no interview. Simple as that. Imagine being able to time travel in your code. Yeah, that's Git for you. You get this wizard-like Control-Z that can take you back in time, and you can even pick which parts of the past you want to bring it to the future with you. Linus Torvalds, the guy who made Linux, is also cooked up Git. Why? Because he hates meetings as much as you do. He wanted to work with people, but also, not have to see them. Use Git and you never want to code without it again. Trust me. Every software project these days uses Git, and if they don't, run. That project is a ticking time bomb, and you don't want to be the sucker who's in the blast radius. Now, GitHub. I've been talking about it all throughout this video. GitHub is basically an implementation of Git that is free to use and where you can store your code to be read by an AI that is trying to replace us all. Sure, there's GitLab and Bitbucket, but recruiters can stalk you on GitHub easier. Alright, what else you gotta know to be the next Usain Bolt of code? Or something like that. Navigating between folders, installing libraries and packages, creating files, editing files with Vim, Nano, or Emacs. These are all the things you can learn that will make your development faster. No one's gonna quiz you on a terminal know-how at an interview. It's like going on a first date and asking, hey, how's your relationship with your dad? But if you don't know your way around the terminal, you're basically trying to ride a bike with flat tires. Alright, let's get real about code editors. You can't be a real coder unless you're using Vim. No. I'm kidding. Obviously, I meant Emacs. I'll forget it. You need one of those raw-hogging supercar-like IDEs. Where the tires cost more than your house. Or you can just stick to the poor man's choice, VS Code. But hold on, the real secret? Google Docs. Perfect for pair programming with your grandma. And once you master your editor, you're gonna code so fast you scare yourself. As Einstein probably should have said, imagination is more important than knowledge, like imagining you ever figure out how to exit Vim. You aimed at high front-end, back-end, game dev, whatever. You got through the basics, dabbled in the best practices, and guess what? You've got yourself an interview. Congratulations. So put on some pants that aren't sweatpants and let's get ready to rumble. This is the part where techie folks also suck the most. You can be the most technically perfect programmer. We all know that's not true, but let's play this fantasy. If you can talk about your work in a way others can understand, show past projects, and collaborate with others, no job for you. Interviews can consist on algorithmic problem solving, behavior, and cultural fit. Sometimes you won't even need to solve technical problems. Instead, only talk about your life and professional experience. It's like going to a karaoke bar and not singing, if you ask me. Makes no sense, but hey, it happens. And you can prepare in various ways. For algorithms, you've got platforms like HackerRank or LeetCode, just like a gym, but for your brain. And for other stuff, there's an entire online industry of courses that are about as trustworthy as a politician during election season. I haven't read it, but lots have been talking about getting prepared with this book. Or you can just wing it, just start applying everywhere and treat it like fishing. Throw enough hooks in the water and eventually you'll catch something, even if it's just an old boot. I went from front-end React to Kotlin that way, learning on the fly. Applied, bombed a few interviews and figured out what they wanted. Cooked up some projects and got better. And if you're in the desert with zero callbacks, network. Get pals inside companies to tweak your resume, recommend you, or just generally spill the tea on what to expect. Got your own interview tips? Drop them down below in the comments, cause sharing is caring, folks. Look, AI is buzzing harder than your grandma old school landline. Will it snatch our jobs? Man, who knows? 1 minute you're coding and the next you're competing with Wally for gig work. But let's get some real talk here from the guru Raval Navikant. If society can train you, it can train someone else and replace you. Deep, right? Like, why is the sky blue deep? It means you gotta have that specific knowledge no one can teach you. What's that? You ask. Maybe you've been in an industry so long you know the ins and outs like the back of your hand. Or you've clocked in so many years on Python you start dreaming in indentations. That's what makes you irreplaceable, like 95 Michael Jordan. And AI can be your leverage in getting that specific knowledge faster. How can you use AI as a piggyback ride to greatness? Future video coming, but for now get your hands dirty. Dabble in ChatGPT, take Hugging Face open source models for a spin, find out their weak spots and sweet spots. Remember, you're not just using AI, you're mastering it. So it can help you sprint faster on your journey to becoming the Harry of code. Yeah, I'm still sticking with this analogy, don't be the Oscar. Play around, learn, and adapt. The sky is the limit. Alright folks, we've journeyed from Hello World to grappling with AI. We've been through a lot, just like our friends Harry and Oscar. Look, the moral here is to avoid becoming a one-trick coding chimp. Keep learning, keep growing, and for the love of all that's keyboarded, don't stop at minuet and G when there's a whole array of symphonies to master. If you listen to my rambling this long, well, you're either desperate or my kind of people. So hit that like button, ring that bell, you know the drill. Do it or don't, I can't tell you how to live your misadventures in front of a screen. Got more tips or topics you want me to cover? Drop a comment. Yeah, I'll probably read it while I'm on the toilet, but who knows? It could save someone else's life or at least their Tuesday afternoon. Until then, keep coding, keep creating, and catch you in the next video. Peace.